First of all, I just want to say I'm so happy to talk to you. I'm a huge fan of your work, and I'm so thankful to Netflix for making your movie.
Thank you.
I will say that it does feel like Netflix is actually like a really good place for you to partner with in making a movie like this, because it just feels like a really good fit. Can you sort of talk about the relationship with them and how you ended up working with them?
Yeah, well, I found Ian Reed's book, and I was interested in trying to adapt it as a movie. And I spoke to my producer, Anthony Bregman, who has a deal with Netflix, and he said, I think we can get this made. So I went to Netflix with Anthony, and we chatted, and they agreed to it, even before the script was written, just based on the book and I guess our conversation. And they, they let me make the movie I wanted to make. They left us alone to make it, and so it was great.
I've spoken to a lot of filmmakers who've worked with them, and they all say that the notes that they're given by Netflix are usually pretty good, and that they're really filmmaker friendly. Did you have that similar experience?
Absolutely, yes, definitely.
Did you? How much do you listen to notes, if you will, from when the studio gives it, and how much is it sort of? Do you know what I mean? Like, do you ever get really good notes from people, and you're like, "Wow, that's really good. I need to incorporate that."
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it certainly happens. It doesn't always happen, but I mean, it's a case by case thing, and you have to be open to the things that the people you're working with say. So, of course, I tried to be.
I'm going to try to ask you two questions you've not been asked yet today, I hope. TV right now is better than it's ever been. Is there a TV series out there that you'd be willing to guest, write, and direct?
Pen 15.
Okay.
I really like that show. I just rewatched the first episode last night, so it's on my mind. But those women are astounding. I just can't believe that they're adults. Do you know the show?
Yeah. I'm imagining your version of this.
And, no, I don't think I'd be right for it. And no, but I mean, I really respect what they're doing and how well they do it. So, yeah, that's the first thing that came to mind.
Sure. And my other question for you is, what movie do you think you've seen the most?
I don't know. That's a good question. Because I think I probably seen like, I don't know, like a David Lynch thing, maybe. But I'm not sure which one. And I mean, I don't think I've watched movies over and over and over again. I mean, I've seen several David Lynch movies several times. I've seen Naked, Mike Leigh's movie with David Thewlis several times. I can't think of any others. I mean, I know there are, but they don't come to mind.
Sure. One of the things that I really enjoy about your work, and especially this film, is that
Barton Fink. I like Barton Fink. I like Barton Fink a lot too. Haven't seen it in a long time, but that's a movie that I think is really funny.
I think the Coen brothers are going to land on their feet.
Yeah.
One of the things, though, that I love about your work, and especially this film, is that it leaves a lot open to the viewer to interpret what they want to see in it. You're not dictating an exact sort of thing, if you will. Can you talk about sort of writing that and maybe what it's like in the editing room, making sure you find the right bit that you want to sort of put out there?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of it is in the script and trying to make the script exist on different levels, not just one level, and not just be like this sort of plot-driven thing, but have different elements and different ideas that are kind of like built into it. And then you use that as the basis for understanding what you need to do, in production and in post-production. There are ways to sort of like build on that with sound design and use it, use the photography to kind of get certain ideas across. And you just have those in your head while you're working.
Sure. I'm fascinated by the editing process because ultimately that's the final rewrite. When you got in the editing room with all your footage, maybe did anything surprise you? Were you nervous? Were you excited? So many directors I've spoken to say that sometimes when they start watching the footage, they just question life.
I think, the very early cuts are painful. They can be painful. and you just sort of like, I think if you've done it a few times, and I've had the good fortune of working with directors in post-production before I started directing myself. So I've seen those versions, those very bad versions of things. And so I'm less worried about it than I might be. But yeah, I mean, you just, it is, as you said, it's writing, and you make choices and you move some things around and you take some things out, and you live with it, and then you look at it again and you give yourself some space from it, and you look at it again and you watch it with an audience and see how they react and get a sense of, something that's not understood, or if their attention is lagging, and then you make changes. It's like I think it's like any writing process. It's a constant sort of thing of going back and reviewing and rethinking.
Who do you actually trust for honest feedback?
In that regard, I mean, I trust Rob Frazen, my editor. I worked with him on this and on Synecdoche and on the pilot I did for FX. So we have a history together, and I think we understand each other, and I think he knows what I want, and he has his own ideas, and they're generally kind of simpatico, and yeah, I trust him.
Sure. Can I ask, how long was your first cut compared to the finished film?
I don't remember. I mean, the assembly before I even got there I don't remember how long it was. It wasn't extraordinarily long. Well, maybe we've lost an hour of the movie. Maybe it was like 3 hours. That sounds right to me, but I'm kind of guessing. I'm not sure I'm remembering or guessing, but I think it was about 3 hours.
Now, with you, like when you're talking about a cut like that, that's not a cut that you want people to see. That's like all the footage, like everything in one long.
Yeah, it's the scenes assembled as they're written, as the script dictates, and then you kind of make decisions and move things around, take things out, trade out takes. Yeah, it's not something you want people to see. It's what you're working with.
What was the last scene you cut out of the film before you picture locked, and why did you cut it?
I'm not sure we cut any scenes out of this film. It's a good question.
I'm throwing you curveballs today.
Yeah. We certainly tightened things and took out segments of scenes, but there aren't that many scenes in the movie, really, and I don't think we've removed any of them. I feel pretty confident about that. There's no entire scene that's missing from the movie.
Sure. I really loved the Tulsi Town commercial. There's a lot of stuff in the third act that I really loved, but I loved the way the animation, and could you sort of talk about designing that sequence?
So originally it was a Dairy Queen. In the book, it's a Dairy Queen, and in my script, it was a Dairy Queen, but Dairy Queen would not let us use their name because the girl has open sores on her arm, the girl who's making the drinks. So I made up a company called Tulsi Town, and but before I did that, I found a very old Dairy Queen commercial online, and it was really creepy, and it was in black and white, and I loved it, and I was planning on using it in the movie, but since we didn't have Dairy Queen, I couldn't. So I worked with the people that I worked with on Anomalisa, who Rosa Tran and Duke Johnson, who got animators to come in and we looked at this particular commercial and it was, it wasn't copied, but the tone of it and the look of it was kind of like we tried to sort of get something equivalent to it. And the woman who sang Little Person in Synecdoche, and the other songs in Synecdoche as well, Deanna Story, she sang the jingle, and then we animated it, her singing we animated it to her singing. And so that's how that happened.
Sure, it's great. I loved your, I'm going to butcher the name, Amalisa. The stop motion movie. I love it. And I love the way that you brought your voice to stop mo, like it's just great. Have you given any more thought to doing something else in stop motion, or was that just such a daunting process? You're like, no.
No, I've talked about it with the people I worked with on that a fair amount around the time that we made it. But, we weren't really able to kind of make anything happen because the movie didn't make any money. And so it's, you're not going to get the financing to do another project. So, but yeah, I love stop motion. And in fact, I made it a big part of my novel after having the experience of working on Anomalisa.
If you could get the financing today for any project that you have written, something you've always wanted to make, what would you make and why?
Well, developing this thing for HBO, which is a limited series about a virus that causes stupidity, and it's based on a screenplay I wrote, which is based on a novel called IQ83, and I'm actually developing it for them. So it's possible that it's going to happen. I don't know that it's going to happen, but I'm very interested in, because of the circumstances in which we live, I'm very interested in exploring the notion of that and treating it as a, kind of a metaphor.
I'm very curious. Can you share, one of the things that a lot of your myself and fans of yours were very excited about was you partnering possibly with Del Toro on Slaughterhouse-5. Whatever ended up happening with that?
Nothing. He and I had a conversation, and it didn't amount to anything. It didn't happen. So, which is kind of just as well, because I'm not really all that interested in adapting a novel like that. It's a great novel. I love it. I think it's very difficult. I think It's a very difficult novel to adapt into. I know it's been done, and I don't really particularly like the version that exists, but I'm not entirely sure how to make a better version.
Well, I also wonder, recently I've started just coming around to the fact that a lot of material is better suited for a 6 or 8 episode limited series than a 2-hour.
Yeah, and that's true. I agree with that. I think that it's possible the Slaughterhouse-5 would work better in that form. And I hadn't thought about it, but yeah, you might be right.
I wanted to know, what was it like shooting those driving scenes in the movie? Because I know you had a limited amount of time to shoot the film, but there's so much that takes place in the car. Can you sort of talk about filming those sequences and the challenges of, so much dialogue and so much in the car?
Yeah, and we shot it in a warehouse in front of green screens, and so it wasn't as miserable an experience as it might have been if we had to shoot it in the actual snow. But yeah, I was worried about it, and Wukash, my DP, was worried about keeping it interesting. And we had limited angles we could use because it was a car. And but I think it ended up being because Jesse and Jesse were so compelling in their performances that I never found it. Once I saw it on film, I never found it a worry. I thought these scenes are really good, and I'm really happy to watch them. So yeah, that's it.
Sure. How did you end up being on set in terms of, do you find yourself doing a lot of takes? Do you find that like you enjoy 2 or 3 takes? What are you like on set when you're actually filming?
Again, I think the actors are so good in this that I didn't really feel the need to do a lot of takes. I also just didn't have the time to do a lot of takes because we had very limited time shooting days. And but yeah, I would say it was probably around 2 to 3 takes for each shot.
Okay, so you were really zooming through.
Yeah, we had to, but also I was satisfied, so there was no reason to push that. Yeah,
they seem to be talented. Jesse and Jesse.
Jesse and David and Tony are all very talented.
Yeah, they're okay. I think it's probably my last question for you. You're going in, and you obviously you have limited time, limited money to make your movie. What were you most nervous about being able to pull off with the time and money that you had to make your film?
I think I was probably most nervous about the dining room scene, just because, again, we were in very enclosed space. We had very limited opportunity to sort of move the camera. And it was a very static scene, with people sitting around a table. But it was more complicated than the car stuff because there were 4 of them. So I was nervous about getting all the coverage that I needed. and making it compelling. But I mean, all in all, I don't think there was much that was too complicated to shoot for us. We had a crane shot, which, you know, took some time for us to set up. Other than that, it was pretty straightforward.
On that note, I need to go. Sir, congratulations on the movie. It is a
Thank you.
real pleasure to talk to you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.